Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Welcome to the 25 books I want to read in 2025. I honestly could have picked out more than 25 books, but 25 books is a very long TBR. There's just so many books that I want to read in 2025. There's so many good books on my physical TBR that I want to get to this year, which that will be a whole separate video of my physical TBR, but these are the 25 books that are high priority for 2025. I've got a lot of physical copies here, but I actually want to start with some of the books that I don't have physical copies of. So I actually have 3 books on my Libby app right now, so these are going to be my more high priority. I also have a couple library books which I'll show you, which will also be higher priority because obviously I have to give those back to the library. But starting off strong with Winter Solstice by Ellen Hildebrand. This is the last book in the winter series, and I started this series at the end of 2024, so I went through it pretty quickly. I read them pretty much back to back. There's a couple of books that I had to pause on because I needed to wait for the hold on Libby, but I have this book currently. I think it's the 4th book in the winter series, so I can't really tell you what this book is about, but you're basically following a family in this entire series, and they own this inn, and you just follow a bunch of things that happen to them. And in the first book, it actually takes place during Christmas, and it's like 24 hours, or I think it's 2 days actually, and it's Christmas Eve and Christmas. But this one seems to be just the winter vibes. And then I also want to read Powerful by Lauren Roberts. I read Powerless at the end of last year, and I really liked it. It was one of my 5-star reads from 2024, so I'm excited to read this little novella, which I believe the novella follows our main character's friend. So I'm excited to get her point of view and what happened to her, because we didn't really see her a lot in the first book. And then I want to read The Four Winds by Kristen Hanna. I know that this follows the Dust Bowl that happened in Texas. That's pretty much all I know about it, which I kind of want to keep it that way. Honestly, you'll hear me say that a lot about all of these books. I don't know a ton about most of them, simply because I like to go into my books as blind as possible. I like to know just a couple little sentences about the book. That way I kind of know what the book is about and if I want to pick it up or not. But for the most part, I like to go in blind. But Kristen Hanna is an author that I absolutely fell in love with in 2024, so I'm excited to read more of her work. My cat. I'm sure you can hear my cat. She decided that as soon as I started filming was the time for her to eat her food that's been sitting here for hours. But I have a couple books on this list that I literally just googled books getting screen adaptations in 2025 so that I can read those books before they get adaptations this year. So the first one is The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. I've already tried to find this book, and I'm either gonna have to buy the paperback or I'm gonna do Kindle Unlimited for like a month or two, because I don't have Kindle Unlimited. I've actually always wanted to try it and see, because I think you get a month free, but I also just have such a long physical TBR that I've been putting off trying Kindle Unlimited. So maybe this will be my year for that, so that I can also read The Housemaid. I also want to read The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I don't know anything about this book, to be honest, but I definitely want to read it before it hits the screen. I don't know if it's going to become a TV show or a movie or whatever. I don't know, but this book, I'm really late to the game because this book was so popular for so long and I just never read it. I just couldn't get my hands on it for the longest time. And I think even now my hold on Libby is like weeks long. A lot of these books that I don't own, you can kind of tell I'm trying to get them on Libby. I love Libby and just the public library in general. My hold for The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo is about 9 weeks long, so hopefully I can read this book in 9 weeks. A lot of my holds are like that, honestly. People We Meet on Vacation is a 10-week hold, which I guess we might as well talk about that book next. It's another Emily Henry book that is supposed to get a screen adaptation this year. I hear so many good things about this book. I honestly don't think I know what this book is about at all, but I've read multiple Emily Henry books. I think I've read 3 or 4 by her, and I have Funny Story on my physical TBR, which I also want to read this year, but we're not going to talk about that one today. But I love Emily Henry. I love her writing, so I'm very excited to read this one, and I'm excited to see what they do with the TV show or movie. I don't know which one it is. And then I also have The Midnight Library on this list, and I just realized when I was scrolling through Libby that my hold on Libby says it's going to be several months until I can get it, so hopefully I can get my hands on the audiobook, because the audiobook says I have like 8 weeks or something like that. But I've heard good things about this book, and I feel like there's definitely a good following behind this book since it is getting a screen adaptation in 2025. And that was my last screen adaptation. I think there was 4 that I just want to read because they're getting screen adaptations. I'm just such a firm believer that you should read the book before watching the TV show or movie or whatever, before watching the screen adaptation. So I definitely want to get to all of these this year. So I already know I'm going to be very excited to watch the screen adaptations. I love when books get screen adaptations because I'm always comparing the book to the screen adaptation. How many times am I going to say screen screen adaptation. And the last book on this list that I don't currently physically have, but I'm going to get at the end of January. I already have it on pre-order. This is Onyx Storm. Like I said, I already have the pre-order and I am so excited for it to come out. I've really enjoyed the first 2 books of the Fourth Wing series. This is the 3rd book, so I'm very excited to see where things go. And the way that the 2nd book ended, the cliffhanger, I'm so excited to see where she's going to take this series and where this book is going to go. If you don't know anything about this series, basically in the first book you are following, I think her name is Violet, but I could be wrong about that. I'm very bad at remembering characters' names. But you're following her. She's going through a bunch of these trials in this dragon kind of school. It's a fantasy and I highly recommend it. So hopefully the 3rd book will be just as good as the first 2 were. Let's get into the books I actually have physically. Most of these I own, but like I said, there's a couple library books. Starting off with The Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank. This was actually on my 2024 TBR as well. I have read this book. I just kind of wanted to experience it outside of that school setting, but I do remember loving this book when I read it. It's also just such a heartbreaking book, so I need to be in the mood for it. That's why I've been putting it off, or at least that's why I didn't read it in 2024, but I feel like this is a book that everyone should read. I actually only have 1 more nonfiction on my 2025 TBR, even though I want to read 10 nonfiction books this year. But I also have The Ride of a Lifetime, Lessons Learned from 15 Years as CEO of the Walt Disney Company. This book was actually recommended by the CEO of the company I currently work for, which is funny because this book was already on my radar and I really wanted to read it, mostly because I have this connection with Disney. But hearing my CEO say that he recommends this book put it to the top of my TBR, and I got the physical copy for my birthday last year. So, but those are the only 2 nonfiction books I have. Let's transition into the library books I have. We'll start with The Wedding Crasher. I don't think I've heard anything about this book from anyone, but I've heard books with similar synopses. The plotline of this book sounds very interesting. It follows this girl that does not agree with the wedding, so she goes to crash it, I think to like tell them that they shouldn't get married. But then I think Dean is the guy that was going to get married, and then he says that he is in love with her. So I wonder if maybe this is a little bit fake dating. I'm not exactly sure, but the whole wedding crasher thing sounded really interesting to me, which is why I picked it up from the library. Plus, when I go to the library, I feel like I'm picking up books left and right because I'm like, well, I'm not paying for them, might as well read them and see if I like them. So I feel like that's probably where that one came from. Then I also picked up what will be my first V.E. Schwab book, which I'm very excited about because I've heard so much good things about this author. This is The Fragile Threads of Power. I hope I can read this book without reading the other books that V.E. Schwab has written. I actually never looked it up, so I should look that up before I try to read this book. But this is the first book in a series. I believe that this is going to be a trilogy, but I think that this is the only book out right now. And then I also want to read The Villa, and for the longest time I could not remember why this book seemed so familiar to me, because I saw it in the library and I was like, why do I feel like I've seen this book before? And then I saw Haley Pham talking about it in her like yearly wrap-up that she had read it this week, and I was like, oh, that's who I've seen talking about this book. But this is a thriller and it follows 2 girls that stay in this villa. The villa has this backstory. Some rock star was murdered in the villa a long time ago, something like that. It's a thriller and I love a good thriller, so hopefully I will really like this one. And then another thriller that I want to read this year. I wonder if I was picking out these kind of books because it's a bit colder outside, so I feel like I'm more in the thriller mood, but this is The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley. I feel like this book got really popular a while ago and now I hear no one talking about it, but you really don't get much about this book at all on the back. It literally just says meet the residents of number 12, a beautiful old apartment building in the city of light, the socialite, the nice guy, the alcoholic, the girl on the verge, the concierge. Everyone's a neighbor, everyone's a suspect, and everyone knows something they're not telling. See you in Paris. That's all you get from the back of this book, but I have high hopes for this one. I have high hopes for all of these books, honestly, so I should probably stop saying that. Then I want to read the second book. Well, I guess technically it's kind of the 3rd book in the Magnolia Parks universe, but this is the 2nd book that follows Magnolia Parks specifically, and I loved the first Magnolia book, so I'm really excited to get back into her story. I read Daisy Haynes recently and I didn't love that one, but this whole series reminds me so much of Gossip Girl. They're rich socialites in London, I believe, and I just love reading about rich people in big cities. The way that this reminds me so much of Gossip Girl, I love that. I'm just a big stan of Gossip Girl and I feel like these books are Gossip Girl but in book format. Also, that reminds me, in 2024 I put entire series on my 24 books I wanted to read in 2024, and I feel like that set me up for failure, and I'm determined to finish this year's TBR. So instead of putting entire series on my TBR, I just put specific books, but hopefully I will read more of of the series, but just on this TBR, I put the specific books. There's a couple series on here that I want to get to, but again, I just put specific books. Anyways, I also want to read The Help. My friend recommended this to me so long ago, and then I finally got my hands on a physical copy of it, and I just have not read it. But the little review quote on the front makes it sound so enticing. It says, "This could be one of the most important pieces of fiction since To Kill a Mockingbird. If you read only one book, let this be it." Which I loved To Kill a Mockingbird. I first read it in middle school, and I really want to reread it because I feel like I forgot most of the story because, I don't know, middle school was like, what, 10 years ago? Yeah, probably, actually. Oh my goodness, it definitely was 10 years ago. So I really want to reread To Kill a Mockingbird, and I want to read Ghosts and a Watchman. I have both physical copies, but this one is very high up on my radar. I think that this is also a movie, and I've never seen the movie. I don't know much about the story. This is another book that has a screen adaptation to it. I have not seen the TV show because as soon as I found out that it was a book, I was like, great, now I need to read the book before I can watch the TV show. And this book has been on my physical TBR for so long. Just my TBR for so long. Like as soon as the You TV show originally came out, I wanted to read this book, but also because I really want to watch the TV show. So hopefully I can read this book this year and start the TV show. I know that this is an entire series, so I'm not entirely sure how many books are in the series, but if I read this book, I feel like I can at least watch season 1. But I know that this is a little bit thrillery, and he's kind of like stalking her, I think. That's kind of all I know about this book though, to be honest. But as you can tell, I love a good thriller, especially when it's cold outside. And then this next book I'm so excited to read. Haley Pham loved this book, and I actually got my hands on a signed copy of it, which I'm just so excited about. I don't have that many books in my collection that are signed, so I'm very excited about this one. I hope I love it. It's a workplace romance, and I have not read any workplace romances, I don't believe. But what I know about this one is that you have your two main characters, and they kind of don't love each other in the beginning, but then they're forced to work on this project for work together. And I believe they have to make YouTube videos for some reason for this work project. So I'm excited to see if I end up liking this book or not, especially with that YouTube aspect in it. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. We'll see. And then an OG popular book that I want to read, If He Had Been With Me. I've heard this book is very sad, so I need to be in the mood to read this because I can't always pick up a sad book, you know? But this is YA, so I definitely want to get to this pretty soon. I've been a little paranoid recently that I'm going to age out of YA before I get to all the books on my physical TBR that are YA. So a lot of the YA has been kind of bumped up on my physical TBR because I want to read them sooner rather than later. Because like I said, I'm really scared I'm gonna age out of the YA category before I get to all of these books. But I've been reading YA for so long, and I just normally enjoy a good YA book. Normally they're a little bit obviously easier to read, a little bit lower stakes, and sometimes that's exactly what I'm looking for in a book. So hopefully I will enjoy this one. But like I said, it's supposed to be a sad book. I for some reason want to say that this book follows a couple that had broken up, but then one of them wants to get back together, the other one doesn't, or something like that. I don't know why I think that, but I feel like that's what that book is about. And then I have The Lost Man, which this book is very high on my physical TBR. I really want to get to this like ASAP because I've been saying I'm going to read this book for years, and my boyfriend read this book and I told him I would read it too so that we can talk about it, and I just haven't gotten around to it. So I feel bad, and I want us to be able to talk about this book before he forgets everything that happened. But you're following two brothers, and the third brother shows up dead, I think on their property. It takes place in the Australian outback, which is interesting. I don't know if I've read a lot of books that take place in Australia, so that's exciting. But it sounds like people are a little bit suspicious about how this brother died. It says, because if someone forced Cameron to his death, the isolation of the outback leaves few suspects. Sounds interesting, so hopefully I can get to this book ASAP. And then I actually have two rereads on this book. They're both YA. Starting off with The Scorched Trials. This one I don't know if I ever actually finished. You can see my bookmark in it, but I do remember watching the movie, so I'm not entirely sure. But I started rereading the Maze Runner series in 2024, so I want to read this entire series. I think I only have the next 3 books in the series. This is the second book, but basically it's a dystopian world, and I feel like that's all I can really tell you because like I said, this is the second book in the series and I don't want to spoil anything because you haven't seen the movie or read the books. And then I also want to reread Cress. This is the 3rd book in the Lunar Chronicles. I've been been slowly rereading this entire series, and I just forgot how much I used to love this series. This was like my favorite series in middle school. I loved these books so much. So revisiting this world has been so much fun. They are all fairy tale retellings, and this one is the Rapunzel retelling. I think there's 3 other ones that I need to reread after this one, so I'm so excited to do that. And then I have The Do-Over by Lynn Painter. I haven't read anything from Lynn Painter, but I've been holding on to this book and waiting until February just for when I get more into the Valentine's Day mood, because this book actually follows Valentine's Day. I think it's a groundhog trope, so it's Valentine's Day over and over and over again, and I just feel like reading it around Valentine's Day is going to be perfect. Oh my gosh, this actually sounds very intense because she's kind of stuck in this loop of Valentine's Day. It says she rewatches her boyfriend Josh cheat on her day after day. In addition to Josh's reoccurring infidelity, Emily can't get away from Nick, who she keeps running into, sometimes literally. Okay, I figured that she got in a car accident based on the cover of this book, and that her love interest was the person that she hit. That was literally just what I was guessing from the cover. Okay, we only have 2 more books left on my TBR. I think you would consider both of these classics. So first I have Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen. I read Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen last year, and I actually want to reread that one. I think I might listen to it this time though, but I'm trying to get through all of Jane Austen's books, so this one is next on my radar. I honestly have no idea what this book is about. I just want to read all of Jane Austen's books because I have all of her books. I have them all in this really pretty penguin editions. I'm obsessed with these penguin editions that they come out with of the classics. Love them all so much, so I'm excited to read this one. Hopefully I will like that one just as much as I liked Pride and Prejudice. And then the next book I have has been on my physical TBR for the longest time, and I think I'm just gonna read it slowly. But this is the Classic Fairy Tales. These are Hans Christian Andersen's Classic Fairy Tales. I have the same book but in the Grimm's version as well, but I think I'm just gonna read one story at a time because this is literally every single fairy tale he wrote, I believe. So it's got a ton of different stories inside this one. So I'm probably just gonna read one story at a time and just take this book pretty slowly. But I started reading these a long time ago. I'm on page 57, so I'm just gonna start from there. I love fairy tales, but I feel like I'm not familiar with the OG version of fairy tales. I'm familiar more with the light-hearted fairy tale versions because these versions are not light-hearted. What is it, Albie? What? What's wrong? But that is it for this video. That is the 25 books I want to read in 2025. I'm definitely going to be posting multiple trying to finish my TBR videos of me reading all of these books, so hopefully you will all stay tuned for that. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!